Hello, my name's Narendran, the host of Master of Your Crafts podcast, learning from leaders who are continuously inspired, passionate, and driven to align with their soul purpose, sharing their gifts to bring healing to others. The music is composed by Rebecca Everett. Today is episode number 116, and I'll be talking to Hania Khan. Crouching down to leap forward is a phrase that she coined in 2001. Was inspired by watching cats wiggle their butts to gain momentum for a leap. This simple observation turned into a meditative tool for her, a way to pause, breathe, and navigate in life's challenges. As a strategist, both personally and professionally, she learned to let go and relinquish control isn't easy. There's a lot of fear in the unknown, but she found that when she released and it remained open to the unknown, surprises would emerge. It's a process, but one she increasingly gotten better at by learning to trust in the universe. The more she trusted, the more unexpected opportunities led her way. Now, for Hania, life is simple. Simplicity in goals. True success isn't about reaching an undefined top. It's about finding balance and contentment. She is aimed to live life simply, seeking comfort over constant achievements. I trust that you will enjoy this conversation. Thank you. Hello and welcome to Hania. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm excited to get into this conversation. We've had a few conversations back and forth about a number of different things, which leads me more into learning more about you and your experiences in life and all that you have done and perhaps where the future trajectory is going to lie ahead. So I'm going to start with a really big, bold question.
Okay.
What do you believe about yourself? And does it define who you are at this moment of time?
That is a big, bold
I know.
question.
You've got that's how it is.
What do I believe about myself, and does it define me in this time?
Right.
Um, I believe I have a lot to offer. Um, I'm extremely resilient and ambitious, and I like to think that I'm pretty grounded in my spiritual beliefs. Um, and I use that as a guiding light. I think, yes, it does define me. But I think I'm also evolving and growing as we all should be constantly. I think we're all in a constant state of growth. Um, and the trajectory, was that the other part of the question? The
Yeah, we
trajectory?
can get into that later. Or you're happy to share now. It's
No,
yeah.
I think it's the catalyst. I think it's always a catalyst of where we're going, and what we've learned and how we take that learning and apply it to that trajectory, whatever it looks like, because what's ahead of me, to be honest, is unknown.
Mhm.
And part of that is fear,
Mhm.
but it's also a little bit of excitement and anticipation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so interesting when we get into a place of labeling, if you will, emotions of is it fear, is it anticipation, is it anxiety? What is all of that? To the point of what we alluded to a little bit earlier in this pre-conversation to just being here.
Hmm.
Let's just be here and let's just be present and witness what's happening. The
Hmm.
sun is out. It's morning when we're recording this, and we experience the birds chirping. we can witness this time for you and I together right now. Perhaps the bigger narrative outside of all of this is the constant pushing and the striving that we all have been taught to go
Mhm,
for.
mhm, mhm. I think with that is balance.
Mm.
We live, excuse me, we live as human beings in a society, but we're also spiritual beings. And for me, that's all about balancing those two
Right.
worlds or two
Yeah.
systems. When we were talking earlier, I was saying, part of that balance for me is sitting outside,
Mm.
having my coffee, listening to birds, watching nature for like 15, 20 minutes,
Yeah.
without the noise, because the reality is we live in the noise. So and then it's also taking those moments throughout the day to do exactly what you just said, is to be, to sit and observe, who are you talking to? What are you doing in that moment? And why you're doing what you're doing? And is
Yeah.
it benefiting yourself, or is it benefiting or helping somebody else?
Yeah.
Mhm,
Exactly. So with the journey that you've been on so far,
mhm,
be it in the corporate world and non-corporate world, in the yogi world even,
mhm.
amalgamating all that together or segmenting it, whatever works for you. What do you believe is your calling at this moment of time?
My calling, I think, is learning. It's learning. It's applying what I've learned to grow. And the calling isn't anything that's so grandiose or big. I think the calling really for me personally, and where I am today,
Yeah,
is um, the balance and simplification.
nice.
Yeah.
Is that part of a journey of just having more chronological years on this planet and experiences? It's part of life. Of we
Mhm.
get older, we accumulate, and we get older, and we um,
Let
dissipate,
go. Yeah. It's time
let
to let
go.
go. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
let go. Is that an evolutionary thing? I mean, in the Vedic um, system or principles, that's very much that same principle of as we get older and even pinpointing it to certain years of life. So you get to your 40s, 50s, and one becomes more aware and more awakened and more in tuned with the energetics, the spiritual, and all of that deeper meaning of life component. So, is that a natural process of what you're going through, or have you always kind of found yourself in that space of let's release and let go and release?
I've always been in that space of release and let go.
Mm.
It's a pro and a con. I have this art of detachment. I don't get too attached because I think I learned very young, um, things can be taken away in a heartbeat,
Yeah.
whether it be life,
Mhm.
whether it's materialistic things, whether it's a job. Um, things come and go, but the one common denominator is self.
Mhm.
And if we're bringing the yogi part of it, that other constant for me is the mat,
Right.
you know, um, the mat. And Pilates is something that I've recently introduced. It's just a different way. And when we talk about being in the moment, my practice of Pilates forces me to be in that moment. I really make a concerted effort to um, see the collective energy. If I'm in a class, I really see the collective energy swirling in the room.
Sure.
I really do see the light of grounding, whether I'm in Shavasana or in standing series poses. I really see the light going up and down or horizontal and how it's connecting with the others in the room. Um, I've gotten really good at kind of filtering out the noise and really just centering and really thinking about how is this movement? How is my chi moving? How is, what am I focusing on? What is my drishti? Like, where am I looking and how can I bring that back in? I
Right.
actually see with my eyes closed. So there's a lot that happens to me on the mat. I look at the muscles. I see the things moving, the energy moving. And so being on the mat forces me to be,
Yeah.
but for some reason it also allows me to detach.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the beautiful gift that we get,
Mm-hmm.
is being in that conscious space to be that and
Mm-hmm.
allow that. Because I'm sure you have, because I definitely have been in a place of being, but still holding on
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and still gripping on for dear life. It's gonna work.
Yeah. And we're still human. Those thoughts, just like you can't control the mind, really.
No.
Those thoughts, the outside noise, they come, but it's about just keep it going. This is
Yeah,
a highway. Keep it going.
that's right.
Not serving me right now. I'll visit you later. Right
That's
now we're
right.
here. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not, it wasn't easy.
No,
It wasn't easy.
no. And every day it's a quest of the same principles.
Mm-hmm.
Because some days are easier than others. We all know those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, there's a lot happening around us.
Yeah.
There's a lot, I mean, speaking personally, there's a lot happening to me personally,
Yeah.
professionally. And it's been a challenge to filter
Mm,
because I can get very consumed with, head down, trying to move this, trying to do this, trying to get all this stuff done. And it's not always an easy process. But I would say, decades of practice has definitely helped me maneuver and center and breathe. Breathing techniques really help. Ujjayi breathing it really works.
yes,
It
it does.
really works.
But what a gift to be able to have these tools, if you will,
Mhm,
experiences, practices, awareness, whatever you want to call it, in your tool belt, at your disposal.
mhm, mhm,
So to have that is a gift, and we're more privileged than we think.
mhm. It helps. It's like mastering your craft.
Yeah.
It's it's like it's like any craft that you practice. The more you practice, the better you get at it, the more in depth it becomes, the more meaningful it becomes. It's like
Mhm.
anything you put your mind to, if you really want to do it and you continue to do it and you show up to do it, um, you're just going to get better at it.
That's right. But it's
It's,
a commitment. It's
it,
like life, right?
yeah, yeah.
When we commit to it, it changes our mind. It changes our
Mhm,
belief, our faith in
mhm.
everything we're doing,
Strengthens it.
and
Mhm,
weakens other parts, so
mhm.
other parts can be strengthened. So
Absolutely.
it's it's
And I would actually say it's like to your point, anything in life, if you feel or if I feel, let's say, weak in some areas, or I'm not good at this and it's part of your arsenal of tools, then that's something to look at to build and strengthen,
yeah.
right? Because if you know there's value in it, why would you ignore it?
Life can get pretty difficult, huh?
Sure can.
So when it gets difficult, we
Mhm,
love to do this thing called ignoring the things that we know are good for us.
mhm, mhm. Yep. Um, but that's an awareness of thought. If you know you're ignoring something that is good for you,
Mhm.
that is a conscious decision,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
Um, so that's where you should be leaning in and doing the things that um, you know are good for you, but you're not
But that's
doing
the
them.
challenge, right? So,
Mhm.
in your experience and in your practice, what do you feel are some of the attributes that have connected you to your commitment, but also your calling and giving you that sense of groundedness, so that perhaps that sense of purpose? What were those attributes that did that for you, that you've cultivated over the years?
As cliche as this is going to sound, I, I've never regretted showing up on my mat.
Mm,
I've never rolled out the mat, whether I'm practicing at home or in a class setting. I have never regretted showing up on the mat.
mm,
Um, and holding on to that when you don't feel like doing something or you know you should be doing something and you don't do it. And I might skip a day,
mhm,
but trust me, I'm going to show up the next day, whether it's a yoga class or Pilates class. But in the in between, if it's not a mat, it's that centering, it's that balance every morning of sitting outside and sitting and meditating in thought, observant. Um,
yeah.
I think it's this comment like we get up every day and we brush our teeth,
Mhm,
right? We take a shower.
mhm.
We do the things that we know we should be we have to do for personal
Right,
hygiene,
right.
right? So for me, that's how I apply it, but not out of necessity. It is a part of me. It is, if I don't do it, I'm going to feel off. If I don't brush my teeth, it's not going to be a pleasant experience for myself or anyone I talk to. So I want to do those things. I want to take care of myself. I want to take care of my mind and my
Yeah.
body and my spirit. And it also just keeps me going. We have our ebbs and flows, but it
Mhm,
keeps me going so that when I do have a dip, I know that I can do a little something that's going to bring me back up,
mhm, mhm, mhm.
right? Otherwise, you're just going to continue to plummet if
Right.
you ignore it.
Yeah, yeah. What's your mental dialogue or the habits that you've created that keep you on track? Recognizing, yes, I'm in a dip.
Mhm.
Okay, so now what? How do I get out of this? What's the conversation? What's the narrative that's running? You're laughing. That says, okay, there's an upswing here. Let's
Yeah,
leverage that.
yeah, yeah. Uh, that mental conversation or the mental dialogue, that
Uh-huh.
internal monologue,
Yeah.
it fluctuates. It fluctuates to I can conquer anything I put my mind to. You can do this. I like there's the overachiever,
Mm-hmm.
me, the highly ambitious, I want to be successful. I want to, I want.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then there are the days where there is all that self-doubt, the imposter syndrome. Um, what are you doing? It's this Jekyll and Hyde conversation that happens. How do I approach that or how do I tackle that? Well, I remind myself to be gentle.
Mm,
Um, I remind myself that sometimes we just need that pep talk.
yeah.
And I also remind myself that it's okay to rest. It's okay to rest. You know, uh, a night on the couch or even a whole weekend on the couch doing nothing is okay. Because when I reflect on maybe the week or the last few days that I may have been extremely high performing or high energy.
Mhm,
Uh, it's just a way to fill the cup,
mhm.
back up. And if resting is what I need, then resting. It's not lazy.
Mm-hmm.
Lazy in my mind is I'm not doing anything at all ever. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not showing up to a class. I'm not practicing. I'm not breathing. I'm not doing any of the things that I know
Right.
for me.
But where do we get in? Do we fall into a space of making a deal, if you will?
Of what?
So making a deal.
Making a deal. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, oh, yeah.
In it's been busy all this week.
Mhm,
Or the last 3 days I've been working flat out for 15 hours.
mhm,
So therefore I give myself permission because of that.
mhm.
So how did all this come about? Be it in your life and just generally, do you think of this whole, if you will, cause and effect that happens of that happened, so therefore I need this, rather than being in a
Mhm,
space of I'm going to just be for today
mhm,
and I'm going to be for tomorrow. It doesn't mean that, and if me being in doing things, whatever the doing looks like, might not be scheduled or labeled as high performing,
mhm.
but just being and doing is it's okay. Why do we always have to have this deal and barter with ourselves of like
Condition.
5-year-olds in school? If you finish your homework, then you get to play outside. Well, that was my day.
Societal condition, societal conditioning.
Mhm.
We have been, from the time we were born,
Mhm.
only taught that bartering. Do your homework,
That's
then you
right.
can go outside and play. Uh, Eat your dinner, then you get dessert.
That's right.
You know, uh, practice, practice, practice at whatever you're doing, and you'll get a reward.
Hmm.
Graduate, and you'll get a graduation gift.
Right.
And so we've just historically grown up with this bartering of do this to get that.
Right.
Um, I don't disagree with you in that why can't we just be today and
Hmm.
be tomorrow?
Yeah.
It's untraining, really.
Hmm.
And I think that's part of our growth, and it's part of our unlearning
Yeah.
to deepen that being, that state
Yeah.
of.
Yeah. Because ultimately, that's what is taught on the mat to a certain degree. It's just to be there. If you can't be the pretzel at that moment of time, then just be where you're at. It's okay. Because
Mhm.
there are lots of pretzel poses, let's face it. I mean, come
I love the pretzel poses.
on. I
They
know.
drive.
I do too, but yeah.
I think the other part of what, or maybe what we haven't touched on with the sense of being and why can't we just be,
Mhm.
is there's responsibility that as adults we kind of have to meet.
Right.
And, I'm just gonna call a spade a spade. Like the responsibility as an adult
Yeah.
is if you are on your own, you're either paying mortgage or you're paying your rent.
Yeah.
You have to eat, you
Yeah.
have to generate some finances in order to exist in this world. How
Yeah.
much of it you need, that's solely up to you
Right.
and your way of living. And so part of that, you know, trained, bartered system that we just talked about,
Hmm.
you can be, but this is where I'm talking about that balance of, sitting still and being, and maybe I was productive for the week.
Hmm.
That's part of my, then I've done a lot.
Sure.
Now I'm going to reward myself with, let me
Yeah.
just not think,
Yeah.
because I'm also tapped out, I'm burnt
Yeah.
out, and I've done
Yeah.
what I can do. um, in order to meet those responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um, yeah, I think that for me, that's where, maybe where we didn't touch on is the being is important.
it is.
But we do have some of those responsibilities that, I mean, like if I lived off grid and in the forest somewhere, the responsibilities are going to be different.
Yeah, it's
But I'm
it's
going to need to go chop wood in order to keep the place warm. So it's just
exactly.
it's all relative.
It is all relative, and don't get me wrong in terms of bringing that out. It's I believe in natural process for many, for myself included, and I've seen it in my circle of go, 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 go. And then 3 days later, you're burnt out and you're flat out. You're done. You're tapped out big time.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's creating those, as you've said, it's being kinder to yourself so we don't get into those burnout phases. And as much as being on a mat does it, half an hour, 40 minutes, 90 minutes, an hour, whatever that looks like for an individual, is how do we incorporate that in our lives?
Mhm. It's so important.
But it's
And
also really quite challenging, especially in the world that we live in this first world
Mhm.
that we live in is equally challenging. And that begs the bigger question of the principles of yoga and those ancient practices were not developed in a first world country.
Mhm.
So then it makes me think, do those practices really just belong in non-first world countries?
Mhm.
Because it has the boundaries, it has the environment, it's cultivated in a space where it's held in a much more sacred space than potentially is in a first world country.
Mhm. 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 I have a lot to say on that.
Let's go. Mhm.
Uh, I feel like the Western world has completely distorted the practice of yoga.
Uh-huh.
Um, some of and I'm not saying it's coming out of a ill intention. I just feel it's probably ill communicated,
Mhm.
so to speak. Um, you know, the Western world has cultivated more of a trend
Yeah,
with yoga. The fashion, the this, the that, the over delivering of the practice, the odd words and the things that people say to get you into a pose.
right.
Um, and then also what that cultivates is a different kind of mindset for the people who show up. And everyone has their own reason for coming to a
Sure.
class, showing up on their mat. And I find that it's it should be part of a studio or an ashram, like however, whatever we're calling it.
Mhm.
It should be part of the experience to introduce people to more of that yogi mindset, more of that yogi experience of um, education for those who are showing up to class to be guided,
Right.
right? And I feel that that is missing a
Yeah.
lot in some of the establishments I've attended.
Mhm.
Um, there is so much to gain from being in Shavasana for the first few minutes before a class starts.
Yes.
Um, and I don't feel like the Western world or some of the institutions I've gone to really enforce that. And I think it's so important if you're coming off track. Let's come back. What we've done to yoga is diminish it in a certain way.
Mhm.
And if you look at other countries and how they're practicing and what they do, it's really it's not necessarily a practice. It is a state of mind. It is a being. It's something that they carry with them all the time. It's just a way of being.
Mhm.
It's not a show up on the mat and then you leave, you roll up your mat and your whole yogi experience only happens when you are on the mat. Your whole yogi experience should really be who you are, how you interact with people, how you are with yourself.
Mhm.
Um, taking the 10 minutes to center yourself, taking what you've learned in practice and applying it to your life.
Right.
And I feel that that's missing.
Yeah. How would one incorporate that in the world that we live in the society that we live in, of go, 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 or not? What would that look like for you and I living in a first world country?
That's a tough question. What does
I
that look
know.
like? Yeah,
You
I
could, let's
mean,
go, if you wanted, let's just break it out. What does that look like in, do we change careers? Do we move to an area where there is less influence of, here's another McDonald's, or here's another Tim Hortons, or do do we get to change our environment for our health and for our goodness? Not to say we're going to be, 100 miles away from a grocery store. Rather, we get to choose where we want to live, but have all the good stuff, but choose not to.
I did exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was living in the heart of downtown Toronto.
Mm. Fun
And
times.
pardon?
Fun times.
Fun times.
Mhm.
And I think during COVID, I shared this story with you a
Mhm.
couple months ago. Um, During COVID, I was needing to escape the city. I didn't have outdoor space. I lived in a condo. Um, and I started going up north to visit a friend in Bancroft.
Yes.
And I noticed very physical observation of driving out of the city and feeling the stress leaving my shoulders and my body. And the more I did that, I felt it. And the more I came back, I felt the anxiety building back up.
Mhm.
And when I was up north, it's just complete silence. I would hear the ricocheting of noise in my head.
Mhm.
And I was challenged to sleep in silence versus listening to white noise to put me to sleep.
Yes.
And as I did that, that ricocheting got louder, but it also started to subside after a couple of days to I could actually sleep in silence
Mhm.
because it was silent. I
Mhm.
didn't have the city noise
Yes.
infiltrate my sleep. I
Yes.
didn't, I it wasn't around all this collective energy in living in a condo.
Mhm.
Um, and that was the catalyst for me, let's say, fleeing the city.
Okay.
I fled the city and moved to the burbs, and it's not silent like up north, but it gives me the opportunity to sit outside and connect with nature. Um, I sleep in silence. It's a lot more calmer. And so that was my way of bringing more of that yogi mindset of, "Ugh, I'm going to tap out of the city. I can go in anytime I want to, but I don't need to be in the heart of it." Now, that's not to say that the entire city is the same way. There are pockets,
Yeah.
but my experience was always in the heart,
Yeah.
always on a streetcar line, always in the thick of it. And it was important. I actually needed to for my sanity to tap out
Mhm.
and tap into something more blissful and peaceful and nature.
Mhm.
And it has helped tremendously.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, that's
Yeah.
my story,
Yeah. And a
right?
story for many.
Mhm. Mhm.
in a story for many. But it's having that tipping point. And for many, it was COVID,
Mhm.
but it's also recognizing what that place of refuge looks like for many individuals, right?
Mhm.
And for you, that blessing and that refuge was Bancroft.
Yeah. And I still go. I still
Yeah.
go. Um, there's something beautiful about just burning firewood, chopping wood, um, sitting outside, looking at the stars, watching we were talking about the conversation of the trees or the dancing of the
Yeah,
trees,
that's right.
seeing nature. We'd seen a moose walk across the backyard. We saw, like, I don't know what it was. It was a cross between something, but it was a very large size white wolf.
Wow.
Those, you're in wildlife, you're in their environment.
That's right.
But it's a beautiful experience. And I know I'm very fortunate to have a friend who lives out there that I can go visit.
Yeah.
And I know I'm also very fortunate to be living in a space where I can bring a little bit of that, but also accessible to what I need in the grocery stores and the convenience
Oh,
of amenities.
yeah. Yeah.
This has been the balance, you know.
That's,
I
mhm.
have a little yoga room. Um, and out my window, I can practice and look at trees while I practice. I can open the window and feel the breeze.
Right. Right.
I'm very fortunate.
What is your intentions with the craft of, be it from the yogi space or be it from the business world, because you came from the business world and you're still toddling back and forth with the both of them. What is the intentions you have with your craft?
It's coming back to simplification. With my craft, and I look at my craft as many different crafts. I'm pretty crafty in many different areas. You know, my practice will always be a part of me and it will always grow and evolve, and I will just continue to deepen it. Um, my crafts in terms of corporate, scaling it back so that I'm not feeling like I'm on a rat race,
Right.
simplifying it so that it feels more balanced and more productive, and that I'm contributing and also imparting that, and I can approach it with a balanced mindset versus this go 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 go, um, because that is what it has traditionally felt like. And so when I say the simplification, it's really looking at my craft or
Mhm.
my crafts
Mhm.
and simplifying it so that I can, we said at the beginning of the conversation, be
Yes.
more intentional across the board instead of in these pockets,
Yeah. Sure.
right? It's bringing that balance across everything that I'm doing. And where I'm at right now, it looks like simplifying so that I can find that balance and consistently be.
Mhm.
I can show up for work and be and listen and not feel stressed or not feel like I have to rush. Uh, I want to be at home and enjoy the space and look around me and watch my two little naked cats have fun and watch them just be themselves,
Yeah.
you know. I want to cook with intention, and I want to, instead of cooking just to eat in order to do this and to go off and do that,
Right.
I like just take my time and make a meal and savor it. And maybe it's things from the garden and how and compare. Did it taste different from what I would have bought at the grocery store? Like just those simple things.
Mhm.
That's how I look at building my crafts,
Mhm.
you know. Yoga, like I said, yoga will always be a part. it is me,
Yes.
right? It is.
Yeah.
And then just really being more intentional and applying it across the board.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. So bringing it full circle, in what's next for you? I know we kind of alluded to that at the beginning of the conversation. So you've witnessed, you've grown, you've expanded, and the continuum cycle will continue because
Mhm.
it's energy and that's the laws, and this is inevitable. So, where you are here today, what is next for you, and what's your idealism, if you will, of bringing all of your crafts together to serve possibly the world from the principles of yoga? What
Mhm.
does that look like for you?
I think I'm still figuring that out.
Mhm,
Um, but what does that look like to me in this moment?
mhm,
Um, Having deeper conversations, connecting more with my relationships, um, scaling back the materialistic things in life, um, a little bit of financial freedom, to be honest.
mhm, mhm.
Um, how about a lot of financial freedom, to be honest?
Yeah.
I talked about how much I love where I live, but I'm also considering simplifying it so
Mm.
that um, I'm able to be free of that rat race and do something maybe different or simplify the work so that I can apply myself elsewhere.
Yes.
You know, maybe, and the thought has crossed my mind. Maybe I've got my YTT certification, which I've never used outwardly.
Mhm.
I've used it to teach myself and to deepen my understanding and
Right.
my practice. You know, I've considered, yoga for seniors. I'm in an area where there's lots of seniors, and maybe this is something that, if I simplify and scale back on this end, then that's going to allow me to do other things that's more community based,
Yeah.
right? It's just everything's been so tipped on one scale. I'm really working towards. So, what does that look like for me? It looks like bringing balance so that I can have the best of both worlds. That's what it looks like. That's where I think I'm going.
It's exciting
It's also
either
scary.
way.
Lots of fear, lots of unknown.
And that's the best part, that we
Is
get to have that. Because imagine a world or a life of where there is no excitement and there is no fear, of
it's boring.
everything's just status quo and it's moving along, which is beautiful in itself and it has its place,
Like it's
but it can be very stagnant, right? And
Mhm.
boring, as you've said. Yeah.
It's like a cup of water that sits
Yes.
and you
True.
continue to drink from the stale cup of water,
Yeah.
right? Um, Water is
That's
just,
true.
yeah. And
Very true.
part of that, we could look at, I mean, I'd say fear. We all relate to fear.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I'm not a stranger to the fear, and I'm not a stranger to change. I
Mm-hmm.
have gone through a lot of ups and downs, like at the brink of losing everything,
Yeah.
not once or twice, not even more than three times, in life. It's like you just work so hard to get to this point and then you lose it all. And there's a lot of lesson in that with fear and unknown and trying to overthink. And then that's why I say, I think where I'm at now is about simplifying.
Yeah.
right? And being a little bit more fluid with what comes and goes. And that's where the art of detachment also comes into play, is
Sure.
being okay with letting go. Because when you let go, what happens? You open
Yes,
up for more, for something else to come in,
that's right. Yeah.
right? And if you're holding on to so much, regardless of what you're holding on, you could be holding on to emotion or materialistic things or a job that's not serving you or whatever. The more you can let go, the more I feel like your life is going to be enriched with new experiences and new opportunities, and new
Yeah.
relationships, and deepened understanding. And oh, and I think, the yogi mindset helps to center and ground,
Yeah.
so that while you might be that tree, you're
Yeah.
flowing. You're still flowing, but you're deeply rooted.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. And the dance of life, right?
Yeah, that's what it is.
The
I mean, we're
dance of
here
life.
for such a short period of time.
We really are.
We're like
Mhm.
a blip.
Yeah.
We're just a blip. But while we're here, let's maybe release some of the shackles of society, of that
Mhm.
bartering, and kind of detach a little from those responsibilities, maybe simplify those responsibilities
Mhm.
so that you can be more fluid and you can enjoy the simplicity of life.
Right.
Sit and watch the trees and the nature and the stars. And
Yeah.
have you ever regretted doing any of those things?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
You might regret working, 20-hour day,
Mhm.
the things that you may have missed out on. But
Right.
you never regret taking a walk or sitting outside or doing something that, yeah, actually just brings you joy.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot to be said for creating space
Mhm. Mm.
to be the doing and the being.
Mhm.
There's a lot to be said of that from an energetic standpoint, but also from a scientific standpoint of when there's a puzzle or a challenge that we witness and that we're looking to resolve at this moment of time, because now is when I need the answer. We sleep on it, we go for a walk, we do something different, allows that brain waves, allows the neurons to relax and that pushing of energetic resolve to ease for those answers to come in.
Mhm.
So as much as we live in a world of being productive and outcomes and measurables and all of that, there's a lot more to be said of creating that balance and being in that space of space.
Mhm.
And
Space.
that is potentially what I think is missing, and that is what you're alluding to, and perhaps craving and desiring, and your trajectory will lead you there somehow. But I think that's a human nature component of, we come in to be in community, whatever that looks like, because we've all been there. We've all had relations with people who we know in our heart of hearts are not serving us. But because there's components of us that crave community, because we're human, that's a fundamental piece of who we are. We retract out to then find ourselves and our own inner voice. And we do that constant dance, I think, of being in it and being out of it, introspective, extroverted.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that is my reflection of the yogi life that perhaps all those who own a mat or not, but perhaps potentially craving
Mm. And you don't need to own a mat.
or not, right? But that's the identifier of,
Yeah.
yes, I'm
Yeah.
a yogi, and no, I'm not,
Yeah.
rather than a ridiculously expensive pair of leggings that
You don't need
need.
naked yoga.
It's a thing.
It is a thing, I know. Haven't done it, but yeah, no, space and time. I think to add to that would be giving yourself time
Yeah.
and not overstretching yourself with commitments and over responsibility.
Mm,
Giving yourself the space and time, allowing yourself the space
right.
and time is incredibly important.
Beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, we could continue this conversation, and we had last time for much longer than I anticipated, and you did too. So perhaps there'll be a part two somewhere down the road. We don't know. But right now, I'm honoring your time and your energy and your your generous shares in this conversation. So I honor you, and I'm truly grateful for all that you have shared. So thank you so much for
And
sharing.
I appreciate you and this opportunity. I was doing a lot of thinking before we were having this conversation, and a lot of reflection. And so I also thank you
Yeah,
for giving me this opportunity, because aside from this conversation, it really did give me the space and the time to sit and reflect on a much deeper level than what I may have normally done. So thank you.
beautiful. You're
Yeah,
welcome. You're welcome. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Likewise. I'm Naranjan, and you've been listening to Master of Your Crafts podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and join me next week for another episode. Thank you for listening.